What's up, everyone? Welcome to the Dynasty Coaches Podcast. I'm Coach Dylan, and I'm joined with Coach Brandon and Coach Charlie. How you guys doing today?
What up? What up? Not
Hello,
too
hello.
bad.
Good. As always, you can see our work and analysis at thefantasycoaches.com. We have a bunch of articles up there, so check it out whenever you guys get a chance. Today we're going to look at, first off, some news going around the NFL. And then last couple of weeks, we've looked at year two running backs, year two quarterbacks, and rookies that are performing well this year so far. So we're going to kind of take a step back and look at what exactly is Dynasty Fantasy Football. We're going to look at different draft strategies, in-season strategies, how to rebuild, when to rebuild, and then some trade scenarios that we've gone through that can help you guys with possible trades in Dynasty. So let's start off with news here. Announced yesterday, David Montgomery is out 3 to 5 weeks with a hyperextended knee. How do you guys feel about this? Who steps in?
It's Damian Williams' time. He was the backup. He's now going to step in and get a lion's share of the carries. I think Ryan Nall's the backup, if I'm not mistaken. So he'll probably get a few here and there. And they're definitely going to kind of focus on the passing game a little more. They're going to have to test Justin Fields' arm. But I think he kind of proved that he was a little up to the task in their last game. He was slinging it. He and Darnell Mooney seem to have a really nice connection.
Mm-hmm.
But Damian Williams, I think, can be maybe a flex play on a week-to-week basis. He probably won't be too bad. But I'm hoping this kind of helps Allen Robinson out a little bit because he's been uncharacteristically silent these past 4 weeks. And as someone who owns him in a few leagues, it's not something I like to see because I was used to just plugging him in and expecting wide receiver 1, maybe wide receiver 2 numbers on a weekly basis. But hey, we'll see how it goes.
Yeah, for sure. I like Khalil Herbert. He was I had his comp as David Montgomery coming into this season or coming out of college. He's not as explosive as Montgomery can be, but Damian Williams is going to get the first look. I think he's dealing with a knee bruise.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm not too sure if he's playing this week. I don't know if he practiced today or not. But if he's not playing, then I would definitely look for Khalil Herbert. He's been returning their kickoffs. I think he can get a lot of work. I think him and Williams are going to split that work a good bit. And yeah, Allen Robinson's been bad this year for fantasy football.
Mm-hmm.
I've been surprised. I think that's going to turn around. I think it might be a good time to buy low. I've always been a big Allen Robinson fan. But they just that offensive line's been killing them this year.
Yeah.
But I think you should probably go check to throw out some offers for Allen Robinson, especially if you're a contender. Throw out back in first and see what happens.
Yeah, for sure. Do you guys think that's why second news article why they acquired Jaquim Grant from the Dolphins? Do you think that puts more of an emphasis on the passing game and the lack of production from Allen Robinson?
I would say it's definitely a way to shore up the passing game because Grant's kind of he's a speed demon, deep threat type of guy, take the top off the defense. So it kind of has, if you have him out there on the field at the same time as Allen Robinson, it kind of forces them to play back a little bit and account for the deep threat and kind of allows Allen Robinson to work the middle of the field and hopefully see some more targets and some more catches. So I think that's kind of the move they were looking for, and that's why they pulled the trigger on that.
Yeah, I think they were looking for really an Anthony Miller replacement, someone to play in the slot, add some more speed to that offense. You already got Darnell Mooney, who runs a 4.37. He's super quick. So all they're really doing is adding speed, and I think that does help Allen Robinson. It opens up the offense a little bit.
Yeah, for sure. Do you guys think Fields being named the starter helps? Which one do you think it helps the most? Which weapon? Allen Robinson, Darnell Mooney? Cole Kmet. And then where would you guys have him ranked?
This easily helps Mooney the most. We saw what they looked like last week. He connected with Mooney on a 65-yard pass play.
They look good.
That was a thing of beauty. I remember watching that live, and I was impressed. They had a great connection that whole game. They seemed to have a good rhythm. They'd probably been practicing together a lot. I would have him as like a top 30 receiver right now, Mooney, I would say. And Robinson, I would have him as top 25, top 20. I've had him drop a little bit since the start of the season because of his lack of production. But I think he's going to pick it up a little bit following this Jakeem Grant acquisition. So he's still going to be good.
Yeah, for sure. It definitely helps Mooney. I do think it helps Robinson a good bit as well. But you could see that connection with Mooney this past week. Apparently, Mooney's limited by a groin issue, which that's something to keep an eye on.
Mm-hmm.
You know how them soft tissue injuries goes, especially with speedsters. It can, take a turn for the worse real quick. So definitely keep an eye on him. But he could definitely be a top 30 wide receiver this year if he stays healthy. I agree with you there, Charlie. I think Fields helps him a whole lot. Just being able to get the ball deep to him. Something Andy Dalton just really is not too great at anymore.
Mm-hmm.
So it's definitely a boost for Mooney.
Oh, yeah. Lots of changes to the Bears team right now, so we'll see how that offense works going forward here. Next news item, Urban Meyer. Wow, he had a interesting weekend.
That's
Yeah.
one way to put it.
Got caught with some pictures of him with some younger girls, and Jacksonville didn't take kindly to that. So, do you guys think there's possibility of him getting fired, or do you think they're gonna give him a chance? Or
That's something that's definitely within the realm of possibility. I was reading a piece earlier today. They're interviewing some of the players. They remained anonymous, of course, but I guess Meyer issued an apology to the locker room as a whole, and apparently right after he left, the players just started laughing. They don't take him seriously. He doesn't have the backs of the players in the locker room, so I think this is kind of a prelude to him exiting in Jacksonville.
Yeah, I think we've got about 2 weeks before another health complication comes up.
Yeah, for sure.
He's been really bad in the NFL. I don't think he wants to be there anymore. I think he realized he made a mistake. And I think this was a way to help speed up his process out of Jacksonville.
Yeah, he's definitely been bad for all the players there. Trevor Lawrence needs a new coach to reach his full potential, I think. So we'll see what happens there. Last news item here, Chris Carson injured. He might not play. What does this do for the Seattle offense?
They're going pass heavy. Alex Collins is next man up in the backfield, but I really don't have too much trust in him. He hasn't really had too much NFL, not experience, but he hasn't really seen the field too much. These past few seasons, he's been relegated as a backup third string, fourth string guy. And the Seahawks offensive line isn't the greatest either. So we're going to see Russell Wilson moving around a lot. I wouldn't surprise me if he had the most rushing yards on Thursday night for the Seahawks, and he's going to be slinging it. So DK Metcalf's going to have a big day. Tyler Lockett's been boomer or bust, but I think he's probably going to have a big day because Wilson's going to be throwing it to everybody. It wouldn't surprise me if Will Disley even had a solid day at the tight end position. Because I think Gerald Everett's still out.
I think Gerald Everett's out another week. So
still out another week. So yeah, we could see Will Disley having a good game. They're gonna go pass heavy, especially against a good Rams team that's also going to be slinging it with Matthew Stafford. It's going to be they're going shot for shot that game.
Oh yeah. They're definitely going to have to throw the ball a ton. I don't think they can stay in that game without throwing the ball, keeping up with the Rams. The Seahawks defense isn't what it used to be. It hasn't been for a long time now. They're just going to have to go shot for shot with the Rams. And this is one of the few times we get a good Thursday night football game. So hopefully we see a lot of points.
Yeah, for sure. Is Alex Collins a waiver wire ad for you guys, or you guys just think he's not going to produce much because they're going to go so much pass heavy?
I'm staying away. He's not worth the ad. Against the stout Rams front with Aaron Donald, they're not going to get much push on the O line for the run game. And like I said before, and like Brandon said, it's going to be shot for shot. They're going to be passing it. They're going to have to play catch up because I think the Rams are probably going to take an early lead in this game. So they're going to be passing most of that game. So I really don't see any point in adding Alex Collins.
Yeah, I think I'm taking a shot on him just to pick him up. Maybe he has a big game and you can flip him for a third or a fourth. Just, something, just get a little bit of value from him if at all possible. That's really the only reason. I'm not starting him anywhere unless I'm absolutely desperate. But I'm giving him a shot just in case. You never know.
I think I'd do if I wasn't able to pick up Damian Williams, if I had David Montgomery, I think I would go to Alex Collins just on the hope that he does get a touchdown or two. And I mean, I'm hurting the running back if Montgomery went out, so not much left. All right, that's the news for the day. Let's get right into Dynasty Fantasy Football. What is it? You have Dynasty, Redraft, and Daily. What is your guys' favorite league type?
That easily has to be Dynasty. It's a really good way to kind of keep everyone invested because I've done my share of redraft leagues and daily, and I find it kind of hard to keep myself invested on just a year-to-year basis because I've been in so many leagues with other people who kind of just tail off and don't pay attention, especially if you're not playing for anything. And, so you have an obvious tier of really, really, really good teams who take advantage of the bad teams because they don't know any better. And then you have those owners who just don't pay attention to their rosters and their team just kind of, goes straight to hell and it's just awful. Mm-hmm. But with Dynasty, I'm in like 4 or 5 different Dynasty leagues and they're all competitive. Everyone tries their best. If you're rebuilding, it's because you want to make your team better for the long run. And if you're competitive now, you're obviously trying to win. So it's way easier to be invested. I think it's way more fun. I have a great time with Dynasty. That has to just be my personal favorite.
Yeah, Dynasty's it for me as well. There's so many different variations that you can have with Dynasty. Like there's campus to Canton leagues, which is like a very small percentage of people that actually play.
Oh yeah,
but those are a blast. You've got Vampire Dynasty leagues. You can do IDP leagues, which has come to be my favorite format. And to keep guys invested, what we do in a lot of my leagues, I'm in 25 leagues and 23 of them are Dynasty leagues. And what we do in a lot of the leagues I commish is that even though somebody's having a bad year, they're still able to compete at the end of the year for a compensation pick. So whether it be, say you have a 12-team league, say you play in the compensation bracket for the 213. So that gives people an incentive to keep playing because you're actually playing to win something as well. You're not, still giving up and, let me just stop paying attention. And then they stop responding to trade offers and stuff like that. So
setting their lineup even.
Yeah.
And Dynasty is definitely my favorite. It's the closest thing that you're ever going to come to actually running an NFL franchise. So, I mean, start off with the draft, and that's pretty much the exact same as the redraft. You're drafting. There's a couple different strategies, but we'll go over that here in a minute. But then, I mean, you just get to make trades the way you want it and set yourself up for the future. Rebuilding is so much fun. Whenever you do it, I mean, it just gives you a sense of fulfillment whenever you get to have a big rebuild and then come out 4-0. So start the year. So we will go into the draft strategies now. Really, there's 2 different draft strategies, I believe. It's draft to win now and draft to win later. Draft to win now, pretty much you don't really care about the age. This is probably the closest thing to a redraft draft that you can get. You're worried about who's going to get you the most points now. You're not really looking at your future at all. You want to win now, then you'll rebuild later. Who are some prime players to target here?
You're going to kind of go after guys like a lot of, especially in the QB department, you're going to go after guys like Brady, who's really good, is obviously going to get you a lot of points. He's been a QB1, I think, pretty much every week so far, except for this past performance in New England. Just a lot of older guys who have proven track records who are kind of going to succeed. It's a limited pool, especially in some of the other positions, because it's a young man's league right now. I feel like the older veterans are kind of washing out, but that's just one guy, obvious one that I someone to target.
Yeah, for sure. If you're looking to win now, and I like to do a little bit of mix of both. But if you're strictly just trying to win now, you're taking guys. It's hard because it's typically not a good idea in dynasty leagues to start taking, guys like T.Y. Hilton, like last year. If you took him where he was going in redraft, you are very upset with yourself.
Yeah.
If you held on to him and you didn't move him for what you wanted, you're very upset. So my best advice is do a little bit of a mix of both of them. But if you're looking to win now, you're targeting guys like Dalvin Cook in the first round, Christian McCaffrey at the 101, especially in Superflex over like Mahomes or anything like that. So it's just more of a redraft style draft.
Yeah, for sure. I think Allen Robinson could be that T.Y. Hilton if he doesn't get going.
Yeah. I hope not.
Yeah, hopefully not. But
he's still young enough.
Yeah, for sure. Next draft strategy here is draft to win later. You're pretty much in this strategy. You're drafting the younger guys like Clyde Edwards-Helaire, Jonathan Taylor, who's some other guys?
Chase Claypool, T. Higgins,
Fields,
guys that are going to not necessarily be the best point getters now, but could be stars later on in their career. Pretty much with this draft strategy, you're probably not going to be in contention for a year or two, but you're looking towards the future, possibly being in contention for the next 4 or 5 years after that. So, any other prime players to target in this strategy?
You're going young. You're building for the long view. You want to go after guys like Justin Jefferson, like Brandon said, guys like Chase Claypool. Get yourself a couple of young QBs, especially if you're in Superflex. Go after someone like Trey Lance. Get Justin Fields. Trevor Lawrence. Go as young as possible and stock your team for the long run. And in the later rounds, don't be afraid to take some dart throws. Guys we talked earlier, guys like Khalil Herbert, who you never know what's going to happen with David Montgomery in Chicago. It doesn't hurt. You're just going young, and you might find a diamond in the rough.
Yep. It's guys like Elijah Mitchell, But, it's basically, just drafting young guys. And like I said, I like to do a mix of both. Get some established veterans early, but then also go young later. You never know if you're going to have a young wide receiver go off in their first year like Justin Jefferson did last year. And I'm sure if you kind of just, applied both strategies last year and you ended up with Justin Jefferson later in the draft, you were probably in the playoffs. Now, if you're just going full on, let me draft all the young guys, you got to realize you're donating your money that year. Like that's pretty much what you're doing. The chances of you winning are very slim, but it can pay off in the future because you could have a completely stacked team in the future and still be adding rookies each year through the rookie draft. So it's definitely not a bad strategy. It's just not personally one that I normally go full head on into.
Yeah, draft to win later, I think, is more of a if you have a end of the first round pick, more than the top of the first round pick.
Yeah,
Um,
you need a strategy, like a
yeah,
multi-year strategy to go win later.
yeah, you're definitely looking at more things such as player contracts, especially if you're going to draft a guy like a Khalil Herbert. You want to know, David Montgomery's only got a year or two left on his contract. Khalil Herbert could eventually take over for that backfield whenever Montgomery becomes that free agent. Looking at where NFL teams drafted, um, they took a first round quarterback. He's probably going to be starting for them some point soon. Whereas if they took a fourth round running or quarterback, he may not ever see the field. So I mean, you have your unicorns like Brady and Russell Wilson and Dak Prescott and stuff like that, but you definitely want to pay more attention to that kind of stuff. Um, some in-season strategies. When you guys do make a trade, are you guys more prone to trade draft picks or other players? And when is it best to trade a draft pick away?
So I've noticed this for some of my dynasty leagues. If you start out well, if you start out like 3-1, 4-0, and you have kind of like a good roster, but you feel like you're missing that one extra piece to take you over the top and get you into the playoffs and the championship, you cash in. Like I was in a couple years ago, my team started out pretty well, but I kind of felt like I was missing a piece. So I traded a couple firsts and a couple seconds to go get DeAndre Hopkins, and that took my team over the top and got me into the championship. So you kind of just have to know what your team's looking like, and you make the executive decision: do I want to push in, or do I think this is a fluke?
Yeah, exactly. Like you have to really look at your team and be honest with yourself. Look at your points forced. Look at that instead of your record in the first few weeks. If you're near the top of the league, but you've had a lot of points allowed against you, you've just had some bad luck. Your team could be one of the best in the league. You've just been playing, you just been running into a buzzsaw every week. You're just having some bad luck. So maybe make a couple trades. Don't panic sell people. Never do that in Dynasty because then you're always going to get the lowest value if you do that. As far as draft picks, hold them until I know it's hard, but hold them until after the combine and after free agency. They will skyrocket in value every year because people get so excited about the next rookie class.
Mm-hmm.
And that's if you're looking to win, maybe you didn't win the season before, but you still have all your draft picks. And you're just so close, and you have a good team going into next year. You're still young. You still have productive players on your team. Trade those draft picks away and grab somebody who's proven in the NFL. None of these rookies are proven yet, even though they could be the next. Like Kyle Pitts' hype was insane. You never know what's going to happen with them. So just hold on to those picks if you can. Hold on until before the NFL draft.
For sure. I think that if you do decide on trading anything, picks, players, whatever, shop them around first. Don't, like you said, don't panic sell. Take the first offer because there's nothing worse than taking that first offer and then somebody messages you and says, "Oh God, I would have given you this. You should ask me about it." So definitely shop around because you never know. I mean, what you think is trash could be another person's treasure. It's all about the opinion of everybody. So definitely shop that pick around. What do you guys do with free agents? I know that they have fab leagues, they have non-fab leagues, waiver leagues. Do you guys typically go to the waiver wire in these leagues? And then if you are in any fab leagues, how do you guys handle your fab?
If I see a guy that I know is gonna produce off the bat, like last year when McCaffrey got hurt, Mike Davis was an immediate waiver wire pickup in a lot of these. You burn a chunk of your fab because that's the guy who you know is going to get an enormous share of opportunities in a backfield or in a wide receiver core. Because a lot of times fab doesn't roll over into the next season. You get what you get, so you might as well use it and take advantage.
Yep, that's how I view it as well. If you got a player popping up on a dynasty league that you know could be a contributor to your team year one or that year, spend whatever you have to. Fab in dynasty is not as big of a deal as it is in redraft. I don't care if I'm overpaying by $25. I'm still putting it down because I got the guy. Most likely, you're not going to have multiple guys that year where you're able to do that or get any kind of production.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, like you said, fab isn't as important in dynasty as in redraft. I mean, we have players every year that are not expected to do anything, that nobody drafts, and then first couple weeks they explode. Justin Jefferson last year, prime example. If you see a budding star in the league and you truly believe it, spend as much as you can to get that player in dynasty. Whereas in redraft, you're going to be sitting and say a running back goes down and he has appeal this year, but not for the future. Who cares about that? It's redraft is 1 year, dynasty is multiple years. So definitely don't be shy about that fab if you think that is a star in the making.
Yep. Even if you're losing, even if you have a bad team that year, still put the offer in.
Yep.
Because if you get him, a contender will more than likely trade you a draft pick for him.
Yep.
So even if you're losing, still work the waiver wire.
Just saw that happen today. Someone spent 75 fab on Damian Williams and then immediately flipped him. Someone paid him a late second round pick for him. So you never know what can happen. Take the risk. You got nothing to lose.
That kind of stuff happens all the time, and it's a good way to acquire picks if you are going to be rebuilding your team. But speaking of rebuilding, the favorite part of the show now, when is a rebuild necessary? Do you guys do it start out 0-3, 0-4, 1-5? When do you guys typically say, all right, it's time to sell off all my pieces and begin the rebuild?
When I get to week 6, week 7, and I sort of notice my team is not trending in the right direction and players are consistently not putting up, some players at least are not putting up the performance I'd hope for. And some of these players are getting up there in age. You have to kind of tell yourself, this isn't going to work for me long term, and you have to sell some pieces. But I wouldn't panic sell right away, especially if they're coming off a bad game, because you want to give a chance to rebuild value. So you hold on to them for a little bit, before a trade deadline. If you have a trade deadline in your dynasty league, you hope for a few good games in a row, and you can sort of sell on a high point to get the best value that you can.
Mm-hmm.
Yep, absolutely. There's a couple different ways to look at it. So if you starting off 0-4, 0-5, then you look at your team and it's just, you got a whole bunch of injuries and they're mainly young guys. And you just had bad luck with injuries. Maybe it's not time to rebuild yet. Maybe you just say, okay, this year's a wash. It's just not going to work for me this year. Then move some guys, or don't move anybody. Just kind of hold on. You have a good team. You have a good team. You're going to have a high draft pick next year. Just be patient with it. Another way to look at it is, like I said before, look at your points forced. That's going to tell you how good your team is. If you're near the top of the league, you have a decent team. You've just had bad luck. If you're near the bottom, time to start a rebuild. It just is what it is. Your team's just not good enough anymore. Sell the older pieces to contenders while you still can. That's pretty much it. You just gotta be honest with yourself before you take a real solid look at your team and say, am I a contender or do I just suck?
For sure. Do you guys let age decide if you should start rebuilding also? Because, I mean, if you say you just have Aaron Rodgers at quarterback, Ezekiel Elliott, and another old running back, I'm drawing a blank on one right now, and then you got Julio Jones and those guys, you might still be a contender in the league this year. Would you guys try to sell off some of those guys knowing you're still contending, but they're older, and this may be the top value that you're ever going to get for them ever again? Or are you guys more prone to say, let's wait it out, I'll try to sell them at the end of the year?
Age is something you should take into consideration, but you can't let it be a defining factor, especially if they're still producing at an elite level. Like a few years ago, one of my leagues, like in these past few years, T.Y. Hilton's been passed around like the hot potato because everyone was afraid, this is going to be, the last year that T.Y. Hilton's going to produce at a level. Mm-hmm. And, one person ends up stuck with him and he just, fell off the face of the earth and he's been hurt. So you don't want to be the guy stuck with him when he has no value. But then you also have other situations like Zeke. Zeke was kind of last year, and he was hurt a little bit too. People were kind of wondering if he was at the end of his rope. But these past few weeks, Zeke has been putting on RB1 performances. He's been good, so he's someone who can help you if you're a contending team. So I think it depends on the situation and the individual player.
Yep. Yeah. If you're, you truly are contending this year, I don't think age really should play a big factor. Maybe win your championship, then start a rebuild. Because if you don't have, maybe this is your year, you're all in, you don't care about age, you don't have a lot of young guys, but you have a good team and you are seriously contending for a championship, then I wouldn't start trading away those pieces just because you want to get younger. I'd wait till after the season. I know their value will probably dip just a little bit. You might not get what you want out of it, but it would be time to start selling off those pieces instead of holding on and hoping, trying to squeeze out one more year and then be stuck with a whole bunch of players that are older that have lost even more value the next year. Then your future rebuild is just going to be way harder.
Do you guys typically, when do you guys know when it's time to trade the player to get the max return? Is it, he just had a huge game, are we selling now? Or are we going to wait a couple weeks, see if he does have more big games to get even more of a return? Or what do you guys do, now or wait?
You want to typically sell high, but I would give it at least, depending on the player, another week or so to see if they can replicate it. You have to admit it's a risky maneuver because there's a chance they could lay an egg in the next week. Mm-hmm. But you also, if you have someone talking like, I don't know, he had one good game, I don't know if that's going to carry over to the next week, so I don't want to pay the price. So if they have another good game in a row, you can say this guy's a consistent performer. If you want him, you got to meet what I'm asking. Mm-hmm. So it's risk and reward. But I think if he puts together, or whoever it is puts together a couple of good performances in a row, then you can sort of sell high and get what you want.
Yeah, I think it's tricky because a lot of people are just so smart nowadays to where you can't pull the same thing off that you used to be able to 3-4 years ago. People know not to trade for a player at their highest value. So you just kind of got to be smart with it. Let him have, in my opinion, you got to let him have a couple weeks, 2 to 3 weeks of high-end production. Find a contender that may have some young guys that you're looking at and try to work him into a deal. I don't really try to trade. Like, let's say Damian Williams has a big game this week. I'm not going out next week and just adding him only as the target. I want to add him to a package deal. So maybe you're looking at Cooper Kupp and Damian Williams for Tyreek Hill. So it doesn't look like you're just trying to capitalize on Damian Williams, but you're adding another piece to the deal and you're upgrading at that position.
For sure. I think the prime example this year, at least, is Cordero Patterson.
Yep.
If you went out and got him in week 1, he's had multiple good weeks in a row, really good weeks in a row. So now would be the prime time to sell him high, because I don't know if his return is ever going to be higher than it is right now. So, how long does a rebuild usually take for you guys? Is it a 1-year thing, or do you typically look at 2-3 years? Because if that happens, you really want to know the college players coming out and which draft class is going to be good, which draft class is not going to be as good.
It depends on it depends on your team situation. How many picks do you have? What's the state of your roster? Do you have a lot of young talent you can build around? Because if you're kind of bare to the bones, you only have maybe one guy that you know is going to be a long-term part of your roster, it's going to take a little longer because it's going to be more of a gradual build. But if you have a few other guys, you can, maybe cash in with some of the pieces and build a little faster, and you'll have a nice core to work with to be a competitive team. I had a guy in one of my leagues this past year collect as many picks as possible in this past draft class, so we could immediately build a contender. He has Jamar Chase, he has Javonte Williams, he has Justin Fields, he has Jalen Waddle and Devontae Smith. He has literally all the skill position players and the QBs like from this past team. He's set for the future.
Yeah.
So it kind of just depends on where you are, but usually it will take 2 to 3 years for your average build, if not longer.
Yeah, it normally takes a little while, especially if you go that route where you're actually using, you're trading away your pieces that are actually worth value, and you're just going to make your picks. If you're doing it that way and you're building through the rookie draft, it's going to take longer. It's not going to be short. You like Charlie said, you're looking 2, 3, 4 years if you're going that route. My favorite way, and it gets, because I'm not a big fan of just donating money to the champion. Yeah. So if I have a bad team, I'm looking to take those picks and trade them for proven talent. Now, it also, like Dylan said, it depends on the draft class. Like, these 2022 picks aren't going to be worth what the 2021 picks were. You're not going to be able to have a quick turnaround. The talent's just not there this year. But in 2023, and more people are starting to realize 2023 is the draft class. It's going to be really good. So if you're rebuilding now, target those picks. I'd stay away from 2022. Just make your picks. Maybe get a couple if you have a guy like Adam Thielen, Julio Jones. See what you can do there. But it doesn't have to take 3 to 4 years to rebuild if you make the right moves.
Yeah, I would say if you can get a top 5 pick in next year's draft, go for those. If not, class just isn't that great. So I would definitely look towards 2023 and beyond if you're going to trade draft picks. Do you guys typically rebuild with trading draft picks, or like you said, going after the younger players that have proven themselves so far, such as Justin Jefferson's, trying to trade a Devontae Adams for a Justin Jefferson, or Christian McCaffrey for DeAndre Swift? Or do you guys go and say, let's trade Devontae Adams for 3 firsts or whatever you guys can get for him?
I typically kind of delve into the draft pick route where if I want to rebuild, but I don't want to wait that long, I'll cash in some of my picks to get some proven talent. Like this past season, like around week 4, week 5, I reached out to one of my league mates and said, "Hey, I'm really interested in Justin Jefferson. Can we come to a deal?" And I got him at the exact time I should have. I traded 2 firsts in Sterling Shepard, and I got Devontae Parker and Justin Jefferson, and then Justin Jefferson went to the moon and absolutely exploded.
Mm-hmm.
So I found that trading picks for talent tends to work in my favor.
For sure.
Yeah. I think that's the way to go, because once you get closer to that NFL draft, those players start to dip in value, even though in reality they shouldn't. They just do because of the hype of the draft class. So I'm a big fan of trading away picks, unless you're top like 3, then just make the pick. Unless you're getting, one hell of a deal, for a stud player. But for me, it's more trade away picks and second round picks. Trade away second round picks. The hit rate on those is really low. You could have got a guy like Brandon Cooks for a second round pick this past year.
Mm-hmm.
And, you're talking about a wide receiver 2 on your team. I don't know that there are any wide receiver 2s from this 2021 class. And I don't know if there ever will be. So take those second round picks and move them. That they look a lot better than the third. People think they have more value, but in reality, they're just not worth that much more, than your third, fourth round picks.
They really are just a dart throw in essence.
Yeah. I think I tend to go with players over picks, just because going with the picks, you're more playing a guessing game. I mean, unless you're like really keyed into a rookie next year, whenever Andrew Luck was drafted, even Trevor Lawrence, a lot of people were keyed in on him. But if you go after players, you already see what they are, and they have already proven that they are studs and could be studs in the future. Whereas you go after draft picks, you're more guessing, hoping that you're right. So I just tend to go after the picks or the players more than the picks.
Yep.
Obviously, in a super flex league, quarterbacks are your prime targets. You need to be great at quarterback position on both of them. But is it safer to do a rebuild around running backs or wide receivers?
Running backs. Much more of a rare commodity. It's easy to find quality wide receivers, especially if you're doing just a draft. You're starting up in the draft. It's running backs go fast, and they go fast for a reason, because there's only so many workhorse running backs who are going to get the lion's share of snaps in their backfield. Finding a Dalvin Cook, finding a McCaffrey, you need to build around those guys because they're going to be on the field almost all the time and produce at an elite level for you. Wide receivers, you can wait till the 4th, 5th, 6th round, even a little later than that, and you can find gems. You can find diamonds in the rough, guys that are going to come out and produce you at a level that you may not have expected. So if I'm starting up, if I'm in a redraft, if I'm doing a startup dynasty, I have to go running back. Unless you're in a super flex is a little different. You might go QB early, but typically I would rather build around a running back than a receiver.
I've actually changed my stance on this from last year and years prior. I decided to go 0 running back in a lot of leagues.
Oh.
And it's worked out beautifully. Like, I couldn't be more happy. But for a rebuild, you want to build around wide receivers, in my opinion, because then you're looking at 3 to 4 years of a running back and you're rebuilding and you're not getting the use that you want out of him. But if you're just building your team, I still got to go with wide receiver. I've got like my best roster, and I targeted wide receivers and trades for a reason. I've got 5 top 10 wide receivers in that league.
Wow.
Damn.
Now, I went young at running back, but I'm also able to grab some of these like later guys. Like if you drafted Darrell Henderson later in the draft, you're happy. It sucks that Cam Akers got hurt, but that happens. It happens all the time to running backs. If you're drafting, Christian McCaffrey with your first round pick, when you could have drafted Tyreek Hill, you're probably pissed right now because McCaffrey's hurt again. Now it looks like he came back to practice this week. But for me, I'm a big believer in the 0 running back draft strategy, especially this year after seeing what happened last year with all the running back injuries. I just figured I'd try it, and so far it's been great.
I don't know if I'd go 0 RB, but I definitely go more wide receiver just because, like you said, running backs get hurt a lot more, and it seems like they have more season-ending injuries for sure, if not career-altering injuries.
Mm-hmm.
I get that wide receiver. There's plenty of them, but there's not as many running backs out there. But if you're sitting with Tyreek Hill, Justin Jefferson, DK Metcalf, and I don't know, Jamar Chase, you're sitting pretty good at wide receiver for years to come. So also, I think it depends on how long you think your rebuild is going to take. Like you said, if you're going to be sitting there 3-4 years trying to rebuild because you just don't have, if you take over a loaner team and they sold away all the draft picks, well, now it might take a while to rebuild this thing. So I would definitely look at more wide receivers because their shelf life is definitely longer than a running backs. So last topic here, trade scenarios. I got one here for you. It's definitely, you can see one side of the trade is somebody that's looking to win now, whereas the other side of the trade is somebody that's looking to rebuild. Mike Evans and Hunter Henry. This is in a Superflex PPR tight end premium league. Mike Evans and Hunter Henry for Devonta Smith and a 2022 second round pick. How do you guys feel about that?
I think you could probably get a little more, in my opinion, because Mike Evans is still a premium wide receiver in the league now, and for tight end premium, Hunter Henry just cashed in. He reached the red zone last week. I think he's going to start to show himself a little more. But nothing against Devonta Smith. I think it's not the worst value in the world that you could get. I think a lot of people will pull the trigger, but I think I could probably get a little more. Maybe a first instead of a second in 2022. But not the worst in the world.
Yeah, I think I would have done. I think a first in 2022 would have made it more fair, being that it's tight end premium. Of course, the tight ends are going to be worth a little bit more, but I don't hate it. I love Devonta Smith. He was my number one wide receiver coming out of college. I know a lot of people didn't agree with me, but there's some that did. I love Devonta Smith. So I don't hate it. I think that's a solid trade.
For sure. What about Josh Jacobs and James Robinson for KJ Hamler, a 2022 first, a 2024 first, and a 2022 third?
Robinson and who?
Josh Jacobs.
Jacobs, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think I'm taking the running backs.
Yeah.
Yeah, because they skipped 2023. and
which is a good class. And 2024 is way too far into the future to be making any inferences or guesses.
Yeah, even the Devy guys, they were not even sure about the 2024 class.
Exactly. And 2022 a much weaker class than 2023.
Yeah. Then even in these types of leagues, you have trades like this: Josh Jacobs, Jordan Love, Chase Claypool. 1, 2, 3 2022 firsts, 1 2023 first, 2 2024 first, and a 2022 second for Devonta Adams, Saquon Barkley, Lamar Jackson, and a 2022 third. Typically, for studs, you see lots of draft picks going.
Yeah.
Talk about going.
You're pretty much giving away your future for the next 3-4 years at that point.
You better win.
Yeah.
I'm taking the draft picks all day.
Heck yes.
Oh my god, yeah, there's so many picks you're sending away.
Yep. You're pretty much spending away your entire draft for the next 3 years.
If you don't win 1 or 2 times there, you're screwing yourself.
Yeah.
For sure.
You have to be guaranteeing yourself a win.
Yeah.
If you're trading away all that.
Yep. Are you guys do you guys have any trades that have gone down in any of your leagues that you guys want to speak about?
I had one not recently, it was last year, a couple years ago, but one that I thought was pretty interesting at the time. It was Montgomery, Cohen, a first, and Devontae Parker for Russell Wilson, Tyreek Hill, and 2 firsts.
Oh, wow. So that must have been when Hill was having all his issues.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Yeah. It's crazy to go back and look at trades that you've made.
Mm-hmm.
I do that all the time. I just look back and, trades I've made, trades other people have made, and some of them you look at and you're like, how could I have been so stupid? What idiot I am for making this move.
Mm-hmm.
And the other ones you're like, wow, that looks really good for me in hindsight. So.
Yeah. I've had multiple like that. One of my first Dynasty leagues, it was like 3 years ago. I ended up trading away Aaron Jones, AJ Brown, his rookie year, of 2021, and I believe it was Miles Sanders for Juju when he was like being talked about as the 101 in Dynasty leagues, and some other running back that's not even in the league anymore. And now it looks terrible, but at the time it didn't look that bad.
Yeah.
So it's
sure. We all have those.
Yeah, it's crazy how it works. Like even before this season, I had an offer out for I was going to send away Cooper Kupp for the 2022, like guaranteed 101. The team is terrible, and he never responded, so I just withdrew it, and now I'm super happy I did.
Mm-hmm.
So it just sometimes it works out, sometimes it doesn't.
Yeah,
I actually just had a trade a couple weeks ago that I'm happy I did, and it's kind of panned out for me because I felt like my team needed a little push to get me over the edge. And I traded Zeke, Pollard, and Tyrell Williams, who then promptly went on IR, and a third and a fourth for Aguilar, Aaron Jones, Gaskin, and a second.
Not bad.
This was like the night that Aaron Jones went off for like his 3 touchdown game and put up like 50 fantasy points. And the guy had sent this counter offer to me, and I was like, all right, well, I better pull this trigger before he realizes and takes it away.
Yeah, for sure. Do you guys typically use those trade calculators or whatever, the apps you can get on the phone?
I kind of look at them, but they're not the end all be all, obviously. Okay. Sometimes they can help for pick value, but I don't always use them for player analyzing.
For sure.
I use them for every trade I do to make sure that I'm not way off. way off base. Whether I'm lowballing somebody or I'm sending away too much, that's why I use them. I don't use them to determine, if I made a good trade or not, because values can always change. Like the one I use is the Dynasty GM trade calculator. They're great. Their values are based on the rankings of the employees that are the rankers over at Dynasty Nerds. So it's all subject for opinion, but I always use them as just a baseline. Let me make sure I'm not overspending or taking in too little. Yeah, that's pretty much it. I don't use them to make or break trades.
Yeah, that's me. I just use them to make sure I'm not giving up too much or offering too little. Don't want to disrespect a fellow team by offering them a bad trade offer. So, all right, let's go ahead and wrap it up here. All of our Twitter handles are on the screen there. You can see all of our work there or at thefantasycoaches.com. I know that I am still doing that Dynasty Buy Low, Sell High article that comes out every week. Are you guys got any work coming out that you want to talk about?
You
I
can
don't have
just
anything
typically-
coming out right now.
Yeah, me neither. At the moment, at least.
Yeah, I'm still busy with work, so
For sure.
waiting for that to finally slow down.
For sure. And then the last thing here is we're offering you guys pretty much 5 days a week of podcasts on the Dynasty or on the Fantasy Coaches. So Monday is the recap show of the whole week and what went down. Tuesday is the waiver wire show. Wednesday is our assistant coaches show, and Friday is the start sits for the week coming up. So definitely tune into those podcasts as well. But I think we're done here. Have a good week, guys, and I'll see you guys next week.
All right, peace out, guys.
Take care.